This is not a story you want to miss. If you have fibroids or know someone who's suffering fibroids, this is the place to be right now. This is not your average fibroid story. This is a miracle fibroid story. So without further ado, why don't we let you just jump right in, Nicole, and tell us about your journey and what you've been through.
This is a journey in itself. Well, what I'm known for, and you know what, let's rewind. Thank you so much for having me. And I just love the light that you've been shining on everything from fertility, IVF, fibroids, the list goes on. I honor you. Thank you so much for being an advocate and a voice for us all. Because honestly, that's what started in my journey. I felt alone. I felt like I didn't know what was going on with my body. And it was really interesting because like now I think back in life, my mother she actually suffered with fibroids, but she never spoke about it. She never really spoke about it. I knew that she had this issue, and growing up, what I honestly recognized was her telling me, Nikki, is there anything on the back of my pants? Because she was bleeding so much, we couldn't be outside for a long period of time of the heavy flow, but it was also caused by these fibroids. She really didn't get the care that she needed. And but here I am, a young woman. I started my cycle at a young age, which was 9. And it was just one of the topics where it was like, this is just womanhood. Here we are. And so when I start having the bad menstrual cycles and everything, I just thought it was normal. This is what happens. And I would actually in so much pain that I would have to miss school, or it was just really hard to function in life. Yeah. And it took me being in my 20s, having to go to the hospital, rush to the hospital. I had just had my second miscarriage around then. And it was already a hard thing because I wanted to be a mother. And to go through miscarriages and, at that time, it was just like, I didn't think fibroids. I just thought, oh, my body is just not ready for it. Right. And I took a leave, which I didn't know was a blood thinner, because my pain had shot up, and I'm just thinking, oh, this is a way of life, whatever. And that sent my pain from like a 6 to 1,000. And at the time I was married, and my ex-husband rushed me to the hospital, and I was in screaming, like when I say screaming, I was like that bloody scream. And the people that was in the emergency was like, take her, because it seems like she really needs whatever. And that's when the doctors had said, listen, you have a fibroid. Because you took the leave, it is a blood thinner, and it shot the pain from the fibroids out. I was like, well, I was like, well, what does this mean? I don't get it. And so at the time I was living in California. So the state of California won't touch you under 35. Unless it's a really life-threatening, they feel like, okay, you need surgery. They had like this case where this woman, the doctor went in, cut her wrong, removing her fibroids, and she couldn't get pregnant. So it was a big lawsuit. So they had this plan for the state of California not to touch as far as removing the fibroids unless it was very necessary, unless a person had children. Wow. So they sent me home with coding. And that's where I was like, oh, okay, so this is life. So every time I would, here I started my career, my wife and everything. And I knew when my cycle came on, take the codeine, go home, suffer through it.
Wow. It's just so unfortunate. So many women have the same problem. I too suffered like that growing up. Continue.
And I feel like, and it's like, now that I have a daughter, and now I'm like more hypersensitive, I'm like, this is the stuff that I feel like I need to teach my daughter. My mom was phenomenal, but she old school. Kids are seen and not heard. Whatever's going on, we don't talk about it. Right. So it was interesting being in that space with my mom. But hey, they do what they can. So that would lead me into like a healing and trying to understand, but I felt so alone because I didn't think this was a common thing amongst women. I had, yeah, so I suffered in silence for years. And on my journey a couple of years ago, actually, once I moved to Miami, I started a really spiritual healing journey of speaking more life into myself. I met this woman, and she, turned out to be a really good friend of mine. And so she calls me Nick. She's like, Nick, as women, we speak negative over our womb. We don't speak life. And I was like, you know what? You are right. And here I had been in a bad mindset of my cycle is here. I can't wait for it to get over. Instead of seeing it as this is a good thing. My body is releasing toxins. This is what my body is meant for. So I started thinking more life over myself. And honestly, I start seeing a change. I know when I tell people, they're like, what? I start seeing a change. My menstrual cycle became normal. I didn't have to take those, like the codeine, Advil. I didn't have to take all of that. Wow. I went into a clean lifestyle, was working out. I was a tiny little thing. And honestly, I was just like, maybe I have the fibroids because it was out of sight, out of mind. Here I go, and I become pregnant. And I was showing so quick, like within days. I was just like, why is my stomach so big? For my mom, I had already previously, I'm sorry, I had previously by this time had 6 miscarriages. Oh my God. Like,
hold on. You just said you had 6 miscarriages.
6 miscarriages.
Was that due to the fibroids?
You know what? As what the doctors were saying, they're saying yes. It was because of the fibroids. But here's the interesting, throughout the journey, they couldn't really necessarily give me the proper care to know where are the fibroids. Just live with it. So I lived with it. But even with going through the miscarriage in the state as a woman feeling like, am I feeling myself? Feeling, my partner? Because at the time, my last 2, since then I'm divorced, I'm in a new partnership, plan on having a child. And I felt like a failure as a woman. And yeah. I've always wanted a big family. I wanted at least 7 kids. I'm still, listen, if I can have 7 Avas, I probably would. I love motherhood.
No, it's a beautiful thing. So let me ask you, so you have 6 miscarriages, and let me just say, I mean, you are such a remarkable, phenomenal woman to go through that, and to still be standing here, that in itself just is your strength and what God has put inside of you to be able to share your testimony. The way that you made that out alive is just remarkable, and I want to commend you for that. And I also want to say God bless to your rainbow baby, and they're still here with us, and they're looking over you, and that's why baby Ava's here.
Yes, and I think that's where, and that's why I feel like I sometimes have to tell the backstory to understand my mental state once becoming pregnant with her. And so here we were. She just turned 2, little button just turned 2. And so this is 2 years of handling this journey of pregnancy and this fibroid that grew rapidly, which I had no idea was a capability. And here we became pregnant during the pandemic, and something was just a little off. I felt like I had the cramps, but I just wasn't sure. And the next thing I know, I was like, take a test. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a test. Came back positive. Yes, baby. Yeah. And here she is.
Hi, Ava.
And so polite. And so I'm so sorry.
That's okay. She's our miracle. She's all of our miracles. Please bring her in. Say hi, Ava. What a little cutie.
Hello.
Oh,
Little miracle.
that little
You're every
miracle.
yeah.
Look at her angel. Say hi.
You say hello. My name is Ava.
Hi, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Oh, my little Ava. Why did you choose to name her Ava?
So it was quite interesting when I was in the shower.
Yes.
I was in the shower, and at the time we were thinking about names, and I was just like, I don't know, like, how do you pick a name? And so like we were going back and forth for a little time on this, and the next thing I knew, I was in the shower, and it came to me a name, Ava. I was like, what is Ava? What is Ava? It's cute, but what is Ava? And I looked it up, and it meant life.
Wow.
And I was like,
so appropriate.
Hey, universe, I hear you guys. Because at
means life. Beautiful.
Like, this is the moment. And I'm a big believer. Sometimes we have signs or situations in life that's like little puzzle pieces that direct us into our actual journey and path.
Yes, absolutely. Amen to that.
So much sense, Ava. So I talked to her father at the time, and I was just like, what do you think? He's like, I actually like it. It's like
and stuck. It's stuck.
And when I say it's so amazing, and we'll get back to the story, but it's so amazing how many DMs or encouragement from other people that are like, Nicole, Ava brings me so much life. And I'm like, this is her. She was literally, I felt like she was literally, not just for me, but for all of us. And if somebody that needs the encouragement to try to get pregnant or hold in the pregnancy, or that's our Ava. That is truly our Ava. So that's how I came up with her name, in the shower.
Let me ask you, so you found out you were pregnant, and they went in, they did an ultrasound, and that's when they saw that you were growing fibroids at a rapid rate, when they saw how big.
In the ultrasound, it was still hard to tell. That time, which they say wait eight weeks. So we were projecting. So once I went in, what ended up happening is he kept saying, when a doctor, it could go either way.
Right.
And I don't know what this is. I have to send you on the other side of the hospital to get a bigger look at what this is. And I remember being on the table. I'm like, I just need to hear a heartbeat. Give me that little hope that there's a heartbeat. So I went to the other side, and they did like a more intense ultrasound, and that's when they said, they're like, oh, this is why the doctor can't see it. By then, actually it turns out it was 9 weeks. We thought I was 8 weeks pregnant. That it was 18 centimeters by the time. So my estrogen was tripling and doubling up at a rapid speed.
A rapid rate, which was causing the fibroids to grow and increase.
Keep growing. And I was like, shut the door. So by the time I got in, once we seen, and I actually, to this day, I still have the video. I remember seeing her little heart. She was just a little something, a little pea, but I saw the little thump. And at that moment I said, this baby is for me. I remember saying, this baby's for me. I walked out with such a great peace. And I was like, I know that the doctor possibly is going to ask me to terminate this pregnancy. Something in me said, I feel like he's going to ask me to do that. So I came back the next day, and he did. He did ask.
What did he say? How did he say it?
So he looked at the information that the hospital sent, and he said, Nicole, he looked me in the eye, and he's like, Nicole, he's like, I've seen some cases. He said, but this one, I'm a little concerned. He said, it's growing at a rapid rate. I would suggest that we terminate the pregnancy because you're so early. He said, I really thought it could be one of those circumstances where we can remove the fibroid and then keep the pregnancy. He said, but it's so large at only 9 weeks, I think it's wise first to terminate, and then you heal, and then you try to get pregnant again. And I looked at him and I'm like, listen, I'm a happy little joyful person. And I was just like, I said, yeah, that doesn't work for me. I said, I feel like whatever happens is going to happen. And I rather try than sit into fear. And he looked at me, he's like, are you a tree hugger? And I was like, what? He's like, you just give me those positive vibes. I was like, well, some people may think so. I was like, but I said, listen, if you don't feel like you're the right doctor for this, I understand. I said, but I'm ready to rock and roll. So, but I need everyone around me to be positive. Yeah. So you don't feel like you're the doctor for this journey. Like, well, we'll just, monitor you. I'm going to send you to a high risk doctor. We're going to monitor you going back and forth. So I would spend my journey, honestly, it was once a month going to the high risk doctor. Right. Then it led into every 2 weeks. Right. And so even though like there was some discomfort, and that was his concern. He's like, we don't know. He's like, honestly, we feel like at this rate, as time was progressing, he's like, we don't know if you're going to even live. We don't know how the baby's going to survive. He's like, Nicole, I just don't know. We feel like you may go into labor at a sooner rate. He's like, we can just monitor you. He's like, but I can't guarantee you anything. I said, you're going to be fine. I know my doctor will be fine. And I tried to stay in a positive light. Thank God I had a doula. And, what was really hard, I'm like my blood, hardcore family.
Ask you about that. So you got that news that possibly, your life could be and your daughter's life could be taken, yet you still chose to go forward. What kind of support system how did you handle that emotionally and mentally?
What type of people, like, I could hear you, but it doesn't mean it's my truth. And I love and like, listen, I respect all doctors, and I often feel like we're all practicing this thing called life. But what we feel is right. And so I still, like, even though I heard what can happen and I prepared, I don't want to be too silly now. I heard, but when I say I had a peace, I had a peace. So I wanted to really enjoy also, whatever that looked. I knew that the circumstances were normal, but I was like, I still want to make it beautiful. I still wanted to make it our thing. I didn't want her to feel the fear. I wanted her to feel the love. So
yes, and I know from you.
So it was an interesting space. It was an interesting space, and it was hard. I would say the harder thing was walking, or eventually going to the hospital, or sometimes I would go into the doctor's office, and the nurses would be like, Nicole, look how big this, the fibroid is. I know you're in so much pain. Or people thinking I had twins, or I was further along, because I was quite big. Like, my stomach was big, and I had been very sick. And that's one of the things that a lot of people didn't know. I was so sick.
Let's talk about that. In what way were you sick? Were you sick physically, or that you were in, or?
And it was more so like I would barf multiple times. Sometimes it would be 6 to 7 times a day.
Wow.
And I couldn't keep food down whatsoever. Nausea was through the roof. And it was just really interesting of, like, sometimes I could feel the fibroid contract. And I was just like, oh, you can see it protruding. And at one point it was so big, I could feel it in my ribs. And,
oh my God. I know that you said that you were on bed rest for 5 months.
Or actually 6.
How did you handle that?
Honestly, that drove me more crazy than the whole situation, because I'm a mover, I'm a shaker. At that time, I was a business owner. I owned a salon. So I've been used to always being on a go for my whole entire career and life. So having to sit in bed listen, that was torture.
I can imagine.
That was,
and then financially, that must have been a real sacrifice. How did you handle it financially, not being able to work and provide?
Thankfully, I had really good, like, people support. My partner at the time was just like, you're good, just sit. I'm like, that's no fun.
Right.
You know, my loved ones like kicked in. Good thing I had some savings. So like, you know, any credit cards or anything, I made sure everything was on top of its game. And thankfully, by the time I kind of got more clearance with the pandemic of like, okay, do I have to pay back rent? Because listen, as a hairstylist, if you don't get paid, you ain't making money.
That's
We're
right.
just gonna be right. So I was like, here, the salon had been shut down. Of course, I can't find anyone to take over it because we don't know what's going to happen next in this pandemic.
Right.
And it turns out the ownership was like, we're not going to charge anybody.
Look at God.
Like,
look at God.
Okay. Honestly, that was like, okay, well, I can always come back. I just need to focus on getting better and getting this, you know, fibroid taken out. So thankfully, it was a better situation of making sure that financially I was good. So yes, I was very sick. I lost about 35 pounds.
Wow.
And so just think at that time I was about 152. So losing that 30 pounds, here I'm carrying this, honestly, let's be real, the fibroid was 9 pounds. By the time we ended that, so carrying the fibroid, that was the biggest, it was 9 pounds. Ava, she turns out to be 5 pounds, 15 ounces. That's a lot. You feel every ache.
I mean, like, you were humongous. My daughter was 7 pounds and 1 ounce. You had a fibroids that was 9 pounds, and then you had Ava that was 5 pounds. That is like unheard of. The fact that you survived this and Ava survived and you're living, talking to me right now, it's truly a miracle.
It's honestly
only God.
And I'm like, all I know is miracles are real, because even each step, and like I said, going through it, you're in it. And trying to put as much life, like speaking that life into me. It was through music. I made sure all my playlists had uplifting words. I remember saying a prayer in the beginning. I said, God, I don't know what this journey is about to happen, but please give me the strength, give me the courage, and I won't complain. So literally the whole time I'm like, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm pregnant. I'm not complaining. It doesn't mean like I didn't have those feelings, because there were some times I felt depressed.
Yeah.
There were some.
You're human.
And I'm very human. I tell people that, like, and people are like, you're the most positive thing. I'm like, trust me, I have my moments, but I also have the tools of sitting, listening, going within, and just processing. And so that time of solitude was processing and understanding. And to this day, I tell my doula, I said, you said the most profound thing in this pregnancy. And I was going through depression, actually. It was like a whole week of depression. Depressed, I'm like, with my feelings. And she said, sit in it. I was like, what? She's like, sit in it. And she sent me, she dropped off, I remember, a coloring book. I'm like, I don't color. I'm a businesswoman. I don't color. She's like, Nick, just color. I was like, oh, okay. And those words honestly kept me going. To feel, to sit, but understand, stay encouraged. You know. So,
ask you, where does your faith come from, Nicole? I mean, you speak so positively, and I hear everything that you're saying, but it takes a different type of strength to go through what you went through. Where did your faith come from? How did you get that conviction in God?
I think that sometimes it's the hardest question, because I feel like sometimes I'm trying to search my own self. That impossible. I've seen miracles throughout my life. I've seen what speaking life can create, and I have seen speaking death or speaking negative can create. And I truly believe, and honestly, my mom's she's a pastor, so I have some upbringing, in the church. But I often say I'm more spiritual than religious. But there's something I always feel like it's inside of us personally that we know our truth. and we know the light that we possess. But there's also those funnels where it's like, we're like trees. That's how I tell people, we're like trees. We have to water ourselves, because we also don't know what kind of storms that may come. We don't know what kind of situations may come. We don't know, but we don't put those seeds and plant along those ways. So like my dark time was this fibroid with pregnancy uncertainty. So thankfully I kind of put those seeds throughout my life of speaking those positives. So I knew, okay, Nicole, speak life. I woke up every morning, and at the time I was living in a condo, and I would, as the sun was coming up, I would sit in the chair as the sun was going up and feel the energy from the chair, and I would just talk to God and pray and speak life. And I'm like, baby, we're going to make it. We're going to do this. You're going to feel good, and you're going to be one day playing in nature. I said, you see the park, mommy, and I start visualizing what outcome I wanted versus what the situation was in that moment. And honestly, I'm grateful for that, because there were so many twists and turns in these stories. I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
We ended up having our baby shower early. They were thinking she was going to come maybe less than 20 weeks. And I was like, I'm like, no, but we just don't know. So I guess we're preparing, you know.
How far along in the pregnancy were you? Did you delivered?
Exactly one day before 39 weeks.
Wow. So you almost made it the whole 40 weeks.
Almost. Look at that. The doctor was so surprised. He was like, Nicole, we're shocked. And she came on her own. I did have Braxton Hicks for like 3.5 months. Wow. So I 100% didn't know that I was in labor. But my doula, she was awesome of like helping me prepare with breathing techniques. And then she's like, Nicole, you're positive, be fine. So honestly, I was laboring for over 24 hours, and I was just breathing through that. And like, I think back, I'm like, what? And I remember calling her, and I was like, do you go to the hospital? She's like, yes. So wow. The doctor, and he's like, go get checked out. Just bring your bag just in case. And it turns out he personally was not in the state of Miami, because I came early. Wow. But thankfully he had already prepped somebody else to like, hey, she goes in labor, this is what. But we're gonna backtrack on this story, which was really interesting. Before I was signing papers, he was like, Nicole, I'm gonna be real with you. This is so big, and it's generated by blood. We can't remove the fibroid at the same time. And yes, baby, we can't remove it at the same time, because if we do, and if we touch it wrong, that means you're gonna bleed out. Whose life do you want us to save? You want to save your life or baby's life? Oh, I'm like, oh, jeez. Now, honestly, that's when I got shook. I was just like, this is really heavy. Right. And I didn't know at the time if I should ask my partner. I was like, this is a heavy decision. I'm very much a selfless person. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, my baby. Right. And so I called my attorney, who's actually also my best friend in California. And I know she's level-headed. She's a pit bull in a skirt. And so I said, I want you to make the decision. And after talking to her and, you know, my one other friend and my mother at the time, we came up with, I could possibly become pregnant again, save my life. Honestly, that was the hardest decision. I was just like, how do you choose this? So once I went to the hospital, 27 centimeter, 9-pound fibroid, baby, don't know what's about to happen, because we have to have a C-section, because the fibroid's so big, she couldn't turn. So she's breached. And so, so the doctor, so they were about to send me home, actually. And the doctor on call, and I'm very grateful for her. She's such a sweetheart. She said they were like giving her blow by blow on phone. And so she's like, I'm coming in personally. Next thing I know, less than 15 minutes, this woman is in the hospital. She's like, I'm checking you myself. Yes. I was like, oh, by then I was almost almost 5 centimeters. She's like, we're about to have a baby. I said, who? She's like, baby, who? Not me.
Baby Ava was coming.
She was ready, and it was really interesting because I crack up. I was like, this girl is so like, whoa, because her father at the time had COVID, and he was gone for 2 weeks, locked up.
We're alone.
And literally, when he came home after I made him take, I think it was 5 tests to make sure it was like not positive. Literally, he closed the door. 10 minutes, I start contracting and going into labor. I was like, this girl knew her father was home. It's game time.
Oh my God. So thank God he was able to be there.
Yeah. Yes. Thank God. So we went into, the procedure, and I was just like, okay, it's go time. This is what the moment we've been preparing for. But I still don't know because this thing is huge.
Yes.
And they could kind of, it was so big they could kind of see where she was at, which like she was tucked up under there, but they couldn't understand like how to get her out without it affecting my life. Of course. So the hardest thing is being awake during C-section because you hear everything.
You hear everything.
You don't have to be positive. And I believe, like throughout this whole life, you speak that life, you see it. And I didn't want her to come into this world with so much chaos and negativity. I want her to feel mama, and everyone is prepared and happy to feel you, to kiss you, to hug you. So in the back of my mind, I'm speaking subconsciously as they're about ready. But the doctor was like talking to the nurse, and she was like explaining, she's like, I don't know how to take this baby out. And I'm like, this is the—
And you heard this.
I heard that. It's like the drape is right there.
Right.
And like, Nicole, and I'm talking to myself, stay strong, stay strong. And, I have a history with living in India. And, it was just really interesting where the anesthesiologist, she was from India. And she had the soothing voice. And she would touch me so gentle. And she's like, doing such a great job. I get chills. You're doing such a great job. And that, honestly, in that time gave me so much life because I felt alone. I felt all these emotions, and I'm like, I just need to be alive to hold baby. And if I have the strength for her, I'm going to pull everything out of me to make sure she feels that. And thankfully, there was no ego with the doctor at the time. He called in another doctor that was on call, and they both were talking to each other. Girl, I heard so many things like, no, we can't do this because she's going to bleed out. No, we can't do that. There's going to be more blood. I'm like, y'all, just get the baby and stitch me up.
Right. Just get it now.
Yes. And they did. And I'm very grateful for that. But honestly, if anything that was triggering and really hard was hearing that. Here I am. I'm like, I'm hearing you guys going through this process. And so thankfully, they got her out. She was fine. She was crying. And it took her, unfortunately. But they did an amazing job. They're like, okay, we got her uterus back.
What about the fibroid that they found after you delivered? You were telling me that they found another fibroid.
So they ended up finding 4 fibroids. And the biggest one that was pushed up towards my rib cage, the bigger one, so that was the 20 centimeters, but there was some that was under it that they couldn't detect at all. And honestly, once we did everything, they still didn't know like what was going on in my body. So I would wait, I believe it was 3 months, 16 weeks to be exact, to have the open myomectomy, which I really had to push because my doctor wanted me to have a hysterectomy.
So what made you choose the myomectomy instead of the hysterectomy, considering everything you just went through?
I wasn't in the headspace to be prepared. I felt like, and I still do, I feel like my uterus as a woman is so attached to me. And to going through everything that I've gone through, I wasn't prepared as a woman to grieve of my uterus.
And that's such a big decision. It's an emotional decision. It's a mental decision. It's a physical decision.
And you know, my mother
get it back,
encouraging me to get the hysterectomy. My mother eventually did have a hysterectomy. You just need to live. You already have one child, you're fine. And I was like, it's not so much for me to have more children. And if I do, I do. It was so much, I just wasn't prepared mentally for this next stage. And the doctor, he just was just like, he's like, I don't think I can be able to take them out and do an open myomectomy. And then he was concerned that I was going to have a scar. And I was like, I told him, I am not worried about the scar. To me, and, you know, I have, you know, the line up my stuff. It was, for me, it was a story. It's a storyline. Right. I see it as a storyline. You know, Ava would touch it. I'm like, you was in mommy's tummy. I have a story to tell. This is the proof of it. And, so I had to really advocate for this open myo. I said, let's just try. So I did, and my doctor was so awesome. He sent me to another doctor to get that second opinion. And it made me a little nervous. I'm like, so you really want me to go to another doctor to get a second opinion? Do you not feel like you can do this? Mm-hmm. So if anything, that was like worrisome. I'm a Black woman. I'm like, are they going to care for me? Right. You know, the same. I had already had a blood transfusion section. Am I going to have to get another one? It was like all these little stories, and then you're thinking like, oh my gosh, you're like, we're still in the pandemic. Like, how is my life? And am I going to come home to my child I'm still breastfeeding at the time, and I'm still, in a way, still healing from a C-section. And, you know, and it didn't help. I did go through postpartum depression. So here I am battling all of this stuff, but still need to have the strength. Girl.
I mean, how was your relationship impacted by not only the pregnancy, the fibroids, and now postpartum depression?
You know what? It was a tough space for honestly, I think for my whole family. It's because it's just like, we're so concerned about like surviving. It was like one of those things where I felt everyone's energy of wanting me to be okay, but it made it harder. And I think at my partner and I, which is Ava's father, we're no longer together. It was very hard for him. Wow. And he checked out. He checked out during that time, which was also a hard space because I'm like, plan this, but here I have nobody feeling like here in Florida,
and you were alone. Your family's in California,
and here I am having to kind of go through this strength by myself.
And you're still fighting for your life, to be honest with you, because who knows what could have happened in that myomectomy surgery.
No one. And once and it was really interesting going through that open myomectomy, you know, as the doctor is willing me in, he says, Nicole, mind you, I'm like starting to get like drugged, I'm starting to get sedated. And he taps me on the shoulder. I just want you to know, as we're rolling in, there is a possibility for a hysterectomy once I go. Wait, what?
They were forcing that hysterectomy. They
were forcing it
like so bad.
And for some people that's good, and I'm here for it. But at the time I was just like, this is not what we discussed, and I understand this, like my circumstances. Right. And the nurse at the time, she said, no matter what, he's going to do whatever he can, but just know the outcome is for Ava.
Yes.
And next thing I know, I woke up, and it was such a relief of waking up, but I was just like, it felt like a death having that fibroid removed, because now I went into a state of protection. Now it has been a part of myself, my body, and I was able to just carry on with life. So now I was in a state gone. I just didn't know that grief of this fibroid. I thought honestly I would be happy, but it felt like a death of my own body. So I would need to stay in the hospital. I was only supposed to stay in the hospital, I believe it was supposed to be for 3 days. I ended up, because I lost so much blood, I ended up having a blood transfusion and needing to stay 3 extra days.
Wow.
And I opted not to have medication to heal. So that was another
Who
thing.
are
There,
you? Who are you?
I don't know.
So you just went through an open myomectomy and you had no painkillers.
I was
3 months after you just had a baby. C-section at that.
And I healed with my C-section without medication, but I was like, this is your abs getting cut into. And I was just like, I wanted to make sure that, you know, the medication wasn't in the milk. I wanted to make sure, I'm like, I was
breastfeeding.
I was breastfeeding, and I needed to still, and I still pumped while I was in the hospital. And you know, my partner and the grandma would pick it up, and I had already had a good storage, but once I needed to like stay a couple other days, they were like, we're out of milk. I'm like, I've been pumping. So here I was pumping, healing, grieving, breathing, all in this hospital room by myself. And you know, I would end with this. Once I got in, you know, I think it was like let me see, a week later, I seen my doctor, you know, for a checkup, and he was looking at the incision, and I was like, so that's when I found out how big the biggest 27-centimeter fibroid was. I was like, how big was it? He's like, Nicole, we're knocking at 9 pounds. It's 27 centimeters. I was like, wow. So I got pictures. I can send you pictures.
9 pounds.
9 pounds.
That's
and
he turned mind-boggling.
Watering. He was like, this whole pregnancy, we didn't see the grapefruit size in your uterus, Nicole. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, listen, this is what I do. I do, like, you know, it's either pregnancy. I've never seen anything. I don't know how you got pregnant. I don't understand how you was able to keep your pregnancy. He's like, this one's a mystery, Nicole. And like, I was just looking at him because, like,
God,
obviously,
that's how
what you
God
do,
did. God
you
did.
don't know your own self. And he's like, I would have to say, this has been such a transformative time for me. He's like, I've been showing people your pictures. We're all shocked. He said, but better yet, your encouraging words throughout and your positivity throughout the whole. He's like, I've never seen anything like it. I was like, well, she was meant to be here. I was like, making a choice. Like, she was meant to be here.
And need things to happen in this world for her.
Yes, and so it's an honor being able to be a fibroid advocate, to going through what I have. And I wouldn't want others to go through this, but I know life happens, and I would want to be that encouraging light for others. And like I said, I get DMs, emails, you know, YouTube stories, whatever. People come and they're like, Nicole, because of you, I'm encouraged. I have hope. You've given me more insight that there's more options. And I'm like, if this is what it was for, and here I am on the other side, and I see my baby girl, it was well worth it. Worth it.
Beautiful testimony. And God allowed you to go through that because he knew that you would come out victorious. You are resilient. You are one of one. You are one of a kind. There is no other Nicole on this earth. And God chose you to go through that testimony. And you're here today to talk to us about it. And I'm so honored to even have you share your and be part of your story. And I just want to encourage you to keep sharing, to keep talking to people, because you are really transforming lives and making an impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sis. It means a lot. It means a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And
you know, if you have more growing, because what usually happens is after the fibroids are removed, many people find that a couple of years later they come back.
Yeah.
And it's the lifestyle, it's due to diet. Once you don't make any changes, the same thing continues to reoccur.
Another thing that I have, we're not back.
Thank God.
I have reduced my stress. One thing I felt like I noticed in my life story was stress. It was a lot of stress, and it was a lot of stress because of what was going around me and me internalizing. So that's another thing about my spiritual journey, is making sure don't sweat the small stuff.
Yes, because it actually triggers the fibroids. It actually ignites the hormones so that they continue to develop at such a high speed. And that's probably what was happening. You became estrogen dominant.
And that's what I felt. And with me not knowing this information, this is why I'm so grateful for, you know, people like you or organizations. It's like, this information is not known. And I seen my mother under internal stress, and I was like, I don't want to realize every stress that I take in, I feel more bloated. I feel like the fibroids are acting more. I'm like, oh, like a lot of stuff we hold in, we don't need it. We don't.
Are you doing any like holistic treatments to help them from coming back? Maybe like yoni steaming, castor oil treatments, maybe even some herbal treatments to help continue to facilitate that they don't grow back?
So I've been doing yoni steam. Now, what I was doing before, and so to me, it makes me a believer. Before I got pregnant, I started yoni steaming, and that, like, because before you can see you can see the fibroid protruding, it started to like shrink. And then afterwards, I felt so much relief. So to me, I was just like, yoni steam works. So to this day, I still will do a yoni steam. Just more so for my mental clarity. I do feel like it does work. I try to go as clean eating, organic as much as I can. I do love me some chicken, I do, but I try to make sure that I'm eating more stuff with life than death, personally. Yes, baby.
His father, he's
you broke up.
I'm sorry. So Ava's father, he's completely out the picture, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, so we co-parent. It's been a great journey with the co-parenting. Great, phenomenal father, but we realized that, you know, there was so much of a difference of emotional availability on both parties. And I'd rather for Ava to be in a light where she sees him beautiful, especially as a father. And when I say the most beautiful relationship them two, like they have, I don't step into it. I'm like, I give you the opportunity to be the best at, and he's doing a phenomenal job as a partner, and it's okay, you know, great memories, but it's not the same. So thankfully he's still in her life. I do see him from time to time, and like I say, you know, I want her to see him as the most beautiful father there for her, and she doesn't know anything different. So we keep it as that.
So I see we have a couple of questions. One lady says, how old were you when you had her, and did you have her through IVF?
No, I didn't have her with IVF. We went old fashioned on that.
That's excellent. At least you were able to do that.
I'm shocked. So we started trying in October, and we found out that we were pregnant in April.
Wow.
So it was still like, it wasn't that long of a time, but it was still a good amount of time. I was in my late 30s, and it just, it happened naturally. I did think that you know, was probably IVF was going to have to be an option, but
God had different plans for you. So do you want more? Do you want any more children?
You know, I'm open. I'm definitely open. I'm content. Like, if it's just her, and honestly, she's easygoing, so I'm just like, I do want to have more of you. But I always feel like, you know, what will be, will be. So I'm open. If it happens, if it doesn't, I feel blessed. So,
well, you
will see.
We are blessed, and we are so grateful that you took the time out to talk to us and be on this live today with my community. I'm so grateful to you. You are one of a kind, and we only wish great things for you. And I know that your story, this is not the end of it.
It's not. And my story is all of our stories. Yes, baby.
Hi, Ava.
You say hello, little blessing.
Beautiful. You're a miracle. You know that? You're a miracle. We love you.
Oh,
Gorgeous.
yes. You say hello. Yeah. Yes, you did that. Yes, you did do that. I have learned how to decode toddler speech. But I thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor, and I'm happy that I can be vulnerable and tell my truth. And thank you once again for what you're doing for all of us, bringing awareness and giving us hope. It's such an honor.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on, and God bless you. And let us know if anybody wants to contact you, where they can reach you. If you want to just let them know your Instagram.
Yes. So I try to keep all my names complicated. No, I don't. It's Hair by Nicole. Hair by Nicole, across the board, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or just Google Nicole Jones and all my information comes up. Even though I'm known as an editorial hairstylist and entrepreneur, I'm a stay-at-home mom and a business owner. I own a brand now of hair perfumes, of all things, that I
Ooh, I like that.
Got you. But that has allowed me to still be a mama and be with her. So yeah, Hair by Nicole, find me, DM me, talk to me, and I'm here.
Nicole, I don't know why, but the spirit just told me I feel a book coming on. I feel a book coming on. I feel like yes.
Okay. My best friend, who's like my business guru, she's been on me trying to get this book out of me.
Yes.
So you may be
about to have someone else on you. I'm behind your back. I feel a book coming on. I feel it. Your story needs to be told to the masses. You are a one-of-one miracle story.
Thank you, sis. Okay, we're gonna have to push it. But like I said,
thank you so much, and we will definitely talk soon. Thank you all for coming in on this live, and I want to send a special shout out to my mentor and coach, Miss Elizabeth King, who I see on the live as well. Thank you guys for coming on. God bless you, and happy Friday.
Good Friday.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.